Hey everyone. So I am excited to talk to you guys about our topic today. Our topic is, should there be a separate diagnosis for people who have low functioning autism versus high functioning autism? Using quotes because functioning changes over the course of our lifespan. So who might appear low functioning one day may feel high functioning another, or someone who's high functioning may feel low functioning later. I mean, even people who are neurotypical, their functioning changes over time. Some people, their functioning remains more consistent throughout their life, but most people experience at least some change, if not more dramatic change in their functioning over the course of their life. Most people at some point in their lives end up having some kind of a disability. If you live long enough, it happens. And when you have a disability, then your functioning changes. And sometimes your functioning with that disability changes depending on how well you're being supported with your disability at that moment in time, or if you have other things going on at the same time, like maybe you have a health problem at the same time. All of those things can make a difference. So I don't think we should have a separate diagnosis for low functioning autism. I understand why people feel that way because they feel like they're not getting enough support for their relatives that are having a really hard time. And there is definitely a problem with a lack of support. But at the same time, if we think about the diagnosis of autism, it's really nothing more than development didn't go as expected at an early enough age that it impacted communication and sensory processing, and we have no idea why. Like, if a child's diagnosed with Down syndrome, most of the time they aren't also diagnosed with autism. Sometimes they are. And you can have overlapping diagnoses. That's a possibility as well. But if a child has developmental delays at an early age that are due to Down syndrome, you don't automatically diagnose them with autism too. Usually there has to be some significant differences between what we typically see with Down syndrome and what we see with autism. There's a lot of overlap because developmental differences at early ages have huge impacts down the road. So if that's what an autism diagnosis means, that means it could be caused by a lot of different things. There's some things we know already cause autism. We know that there's certain genetic conditions that cause autism. Um, and there's not much we can do about that. We can't we can't get rid of or add extra genetic material, at least not right now. If you have a child who has had severe epilepsy that's uncontrolled, if we can't figure out a way to control it, there's not a lot we can do about that. Like, there are certain limits to our medical science where we just aren't capable of doing something about a particular situation. And when we can't provide those supports, then a lot of times that has an impact on functioning, because when we are well supported, we function better. And when we can't provide some of those supports, then we're not able to function as well as we could if we could have those supports. There are other things that we also suspect cause autism, connective tissue diseases, for one. Um, it's very difficult to separate out birth trauma and like trauma as a preemie from autism, because trauma and autism look a lot alike, because they both represent, um, well, in early life, it's going to disrupt sensory processing, development, communication, those kinds of things more times than not. Because any kind of trauma in early life is going to disrupt development. And then you end up with a lot of autistic symptoms as well. Not every case. Some kids, it does not tend to disrupt their development as much for whatever reason. So there's that. I understand why people feel that we need more supports, and I get it. They're not wrong. We do have a lack of supports, and we have a lot of parents that are working really hard to try to support their children without enough community support. It's one of the reasons why I started working with parents and why I created my special needs membership, because we need community. And a separate diagnosis isn't going to do that. A separate diagnosis is going to be like shoveling cattle into another category. It's a way for us to ignore the very real problems of very real people. That's what systems are for. They're for ignoring problems. We don't want to have to deal with these individual people's problems. We're going to create a system so we don't have to deal with that anymore. And that's how a lot of people fall through the cracks. So if we really want to see real change in people, then we have to start having more conversations about how we treat other people, seeing people eye to eye, valuing them even though they're different from us maybe, being willing to accommodate people, being willing to be flexible when someone needs something. That's what we do every single day in my special needs membership. Somebody comes in, they have an issue, they need an accommodation, we figure it out. That's what you do. And that's what you do in families too. When you're in a family, you figure it out. It's not like you're going to suddenly not be family anymore. And that's kind of what we have to figure out how to do as a human family. To be able to see each other as full people with value, and to be able to find the flexibility and the compassion to be willing to make accommodations automatically. And to do that, we really have to realize that people are already accommodating for us all the time. And we can do the same for them. It just takes seeing someone as an individual. So no, I don't think that a separate diagnosis would make the difference. And besides that, once we do have separate diagnoses, it really needs to be made based on what's causing the autism, because what causes it has a huge impact on how we support a person. And some instances, there can be a support that a child's body is asking for that if we give them that support, it makes a huge difference in functioning. My oldest had a lot of digestive tract issues when she was little. Her whole system was overrun with yeast. It was awful. And once we addressed that, that's when she started talking. Like, her body was trying to tell us, I need help. And once we were able to figure out what that was, we could provide that help. Sometimes we know someone needs help and we know what the problem is, but we don't know how to fix it. So we do the best we can. And we provide the best supports that we can. And sometimes there's things we can't do anything about. And that's okay. We do the best we can. The person still has value as an individual, even if we can't fix it. I mean, yeah, I think it always breaks our hearts as parents when we're not able to make everything easy for our kids. We want them to have things easier than we did. And I think that's one of the reasons why we put so much energy into trying to support kids and trying to find the supports that they need to be their best selves, whatever that is. It's because we want them to have something better than what we had. And if we can't do that, then I think it really hurts in a lot of ways, because all we want as parents is to be able to make our kids' life as easy as possible for them. So no diagnosis. If we're going to do separate diagnoses, it needs to be based on what's different, because you can't have a diagnosis that changes based on what supports a person has. That's not a diagnosis. If your symptoms change because of the supports you have, then that's not an actual diagnosis. That's a description of a presentation. And people's presentation changes depending on the supports we have. We definitely have huge needs for support, and huge needs for supports that are not being met. And that's a real problem. But I don't think it's going to be a problem that's going to be solved by systems alone. Systems can do certain things well. In the Americans with Disabilities Act, that was huge. They started requiring ramps and handicap bathrooms and railings and all kinds of things that we didn't have to have before. And it's definitely increased accessibility. Does it always provide what people need? No. There's limitations. So systems can provide us with some supports, but a lot of the supports that we end up needing are the supports that are provided by parents. Parents who don't take no for an answer, who get creative, and hopefully find some community to support them. Like I said, that's why I started working with parents and why I started my special needs membership, because I realized that there were a lot of things we didn't have access to. We didn't have OT, we didn't have physical therapy in our hometown when my kids were little. Before we drove for occupational therapy, we would make use of all kinds of activities in our town to meet some of those developmental needs for movement. So you get creative. If you don't have it, you go, okay, well, that didn't work. What else can I do? And when we think about it in terms of that, that gives us the opportunity to provide the best supports we can. You're never going to be able to, one, know all of the different causes for autism. There will always be some causes that we probably don't know. And we need a category so that we can put those cases into a general category, and that's autism. There's also always going to be certain supports that we can't provide. And I hate that, because I'd love to be able to provide every support. That's what I'd want more than anything. But there are some things that we can't provide supports for, at least not right now. Maybe someday we will. They're constantly coming up with new ideas and learning to understand genetics and the brain so much better. And maybe we will be able to figure out some of that. But there's limitations, and there probably will always be some limitations. I hate it because I hate for anyone to not get the supports that they need. And if it comes to whether or not I'm going to find a way to provide the supports that a child needs, oh, I will find a way, if at all possible. If it is humanly possible to find it, then I'm going to find whatever it is that this child's body is asking us for. Because when we have the supports that our bodies are asking for, a person's life can be completely changed by that. Completely changed by a sense of compassion from another person to provide supports that that person's body is asking for and doesn't have the tools to access for themselves. If at all humanly possible, I will do that. And I think that if enough of us work to create more accepting communities where we are flexible and we are willing to make accommodations so that more people can participate, I think that can really change the world. So I don't think you change the world with a diagnosis. I think you change the world with how we treat individuals. And there will always be those people who fall in the autism category where we don't know what caused it. And we don't know for sure which supports are going to be helpful. But we at least have some general ideas of what supports generally help people who have developmental delays in communication and sensory processing from a very early age. We can at least have general ideas. The specifics, those we're able to pick up on more based on what we're learning about what's causing autism. We don't know, there's a lot we still don't know. But the more knowledge we gain, the more we understand what different people's bodies are asking for in order to live their best life. So we have to see each other as autistic people, as caregivers, and understand that our lived experience is not the same as everyone else's. And that's okay. But we do have to make sure that everyone feels seen. We don't want anyone to feel left behind. Thanks for joining me today. I think it's an important topic. Feel free to comment if you have thoughts on this topic.